Hello and welcome back to the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Danny Vittori, and today we have on representatives from both the Lynn Public Health Division and Inspectional Division for the City of Lynn. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Great. So, first question is easy. Could you just introduce yourselves and what your roles are, please?
April Peralta, Chief Health Inspector.
Lisa Tobin, Public Health Director.
Great. So you are here to talk about the lovely subject of rodent abatement. This is so attractive. But I will start by asking about, that's become a little bit of a problem in the city of Lynn, so how has that been coming to your attention lately?
Do you want to start?
I'll start. Okay, so we get a lot of complaints. They can file complaints through online, calling in, or coming to the office itself. It's a never-ending thing, more higher in other locations than others, but that's usually how we get them all.
So I guess in terms of that, like public health, you help with creating policies, inspectional division helps enforce them. That can be a little bit confusing. Would you mind explaining that piece of it?
Sure. So the Public Health Department is charged with the implementation of the State Sanitary Code, which is done through the Inspectional Division.
Okay.
So the Public Health Department, through the Board of Health, will address any regulations in the city, such as our integrated pest management regulation,
Okay.
which regulates pest management on construction sites or during building demolition and things like that. The Board of Health implements the regulation. April's department and her folks implement it and make sure it's being done.
Okay, that makes more sense now. So in terms of rodent abatement, what does the health department do in terms of helping to regulate this problem?
So the current program, we have a rodent abatement program that allows for single-family and two-family homes to have bait boxes put in the yard, and regularly checked for fillings of those. And then on the other side of it is any construction that is going on, making sure that they do have a pest management in place for before or after any demolition.
And in terms of regulations at the city, we have, as I had said, the integrated pest management plan for construction projects, but it also is in place for dumpsters.
Okay.
So they're required to have regular pest control service reports. We also enforce it locally when we get complaints at housing through April and the health inspectors requiring licensed pest control.
And in terms of residents as well, you know, there's things that they can do to help try and mitigate this problem a bit. So what recommendations do you have?
So the biggest one I always say is making sure that the trash barrel lids are, closed. There's no overflowing trash. The rodents are never going to eat the bait if they have a buffet in the barrel.
Right.
So making sure that, those things are in place and things are closed, getting a hold of the DPW if they do need their barrels fixed. That's an option. It is done for free. If you need additional barrels, it is at a cost. And then also just having the inspectors go around and check when we do get big complaints for any burrows and making sure that the landlords are taking care of those issues.
Yeah, in addition, you can see on your property if you have any sightings of rodents, like you notice on the side of your house, it looks like maybe like it's grease, but that's actually rodents rubbing up against the property because they tend to run along borders so they know where they are. You'll see bite holes on something.
Right,
You'll
yeah.
see bite holes on the dumpsters. We recommend that areas where there's a lot of brush that you clean up so that they can't burrow underneath it. Check for the signs at the fence to see if they're burrowing underneath the fence. And for those people who have dumpsters on their properties, making sure that the dumpsters have a plug that's not broken, that there's no holes in the covers from people being able to get into it, and making sure the dumpsters are kept covered.
Okay. And obviously rats have always been a bit of a problem, but has it seemed to be more so of one lately? Because that's the numbers seem to be going up?
We've definitely seen an uptick in it, and we are meeting regularly to try to figure out a new path for that, creating possibly a whole new abatement program in addition to our two pilot program locations that we have, obviously over by Magnolia Park with the construction of Pickering, and then also the Orchard Street area. We receive a lot because they're doing that water and sewer project down there.
Right.
Yeah, and since the pandemic, and I know we're all a little tired of hearing since the pandemic 4 years later, but when the rats couldn't go to the restaurants to get their food sources, they went to the neighborhoods. Believe it or not, rats are very smart, so they know where to find their food. They even know how to leave their scent in areas to prevent other rats from going into areas. So believe it or not, you have to really be strategic if you're trying to get rid of rats or prevent an infestation. And again, you're not having any other food sources available, so that the only food source available is the bait.
Right.
We've also worked with different types of rat control abatement, and we've worked with a lot of conservancy folks to make sure that what we're doing in different areas isn't going to hurt other animals.
And from the Public Health Department, what sort of information do you put out, or where can people find more information about these programs that you offer?
So the abatement program itself, the forms that you have to fill out are available online and or in the office. It's basically a release for someone to be allowed onto their property to put the bait boxes in. So that's the first step. Other than that, it's just a matter of trying to find the locations and getting them under control.
Yes, and we have some web resources on our city website at Public Health.
So pretty straightforward, pretty simple ways for people to learn more about it. And I need to remember the next question. I guess going into the winter, do the seasons have a large impact on when they try to get in places? Because winter, they may not have another food source. Or does that make it?
I don't necessarily find that rats try to get into basements the way mice do. Like I think we're all familiar with in the fall, like we know the mice are trying to get into to the basements. Rats tend to have nests and burrows underground, so they're not really necessarily looking to get someplace warm.
Okay.
But if you're overrun and then they've used their food source outside, they're going to try to get into a food source. So yeah.
Oh, great. That's really
So
reassuring.
filling holes around your foundation is highly suggested if you have any of those holes.
And one thing that was crazy, how small the holes can be for them to squeeze into, which I didn't even understand. How small were they?
I don't know exactly, but very small, because I don't believe rats have any bones. So like if you look at a dumpster and you see on the side they have like that little pipe hole, it's probably about this big. And they can squeeze through that. They can get through immensely small areas, even a large rat.
Of course they can.
One of the other things is water sources as well.
Okay.
So not just food, but particularly after rats have taken bait, they'll be thirsty. So they'll be looking for any water sources. So if you have, some people have like covers to barrels on the ground and they're flipped over and they fill with water, that becomes a water source for a rat. So it's mindful for that too.
Wow. So things that I wouldn't even necessarily think of how resourceful they all can be.
They've been around forever. They're very resourceful.
And how have people been taking to the pilot programs? A lot of people have been using them. Do they seem successful so far?
Yeah, we do have there's been an uptick in it, but yes. I mean, people see, but I think the more so you're still seeing them.
Right,
And then once they do eat the bait, you're dealing with the aftermath of possibly finding a dead rat here or there. But circle of death is, that to actually, if you can put it in a burrow, because in the end, rats eat each other. So they be therefore eating the poison again. So it's kind of circle of death.
Perfect Thanksgiving discussion, isn't it?
So, yeah, great thing to be talking about right before that all.
So one of the things that we did in one of the pilot areas that we worked on last year was on foot code enforcement. Really going out there and walking and looking at every property that was in this area to make sure that the property itself was ready to be baited, so that there was nothing else on the property that would be bringing the rat. And we find that was more than 50% of getting to the problem, is just really making sure people understood. Because I wouldn't say that it was people didn't care. I don't think people understood truly what rats can burrow in, what they will eat, what is attractive to them. So getting out and educating people and keeping people informed was a huge part of the success of the program. So I know that that's something the city wants to do more of, and we're working to build that.
Because like you said, if they have another source, bait won't matter, it doesn't work, right?
Correct.
Right. And I do have to wrap up in a moment, but was there anything else that you wanted to mention about the program, enforcement, any resources that I hadn't mentioned?
We're putting forth another another program trying to get more inspectors on the ground and seeing, especially with people who do request, the bait boxes, to possibly include inspections on those, just to, we can put down all the bait boxes that we want, but if the yard is still, a mess, or there are broken trash barrels, we're just trying to get ahead of that so they do eat the bait more than, the buffet in the barrel.
Yeah, I would just say that that when people have questions, to reach out proactively. Look on our webpage for resources, just to be mindful about their own properties, working together as a neighborhood, because when one neighbor has a problem, it's eventually going to go to the other neighbors.
Of course,
and
yeah.
just making sure that you work together to make sure that you can keep them at bay.
So, yeah. And all the information that you provide today has been wicked useful. I know I've learned a few things, but I want to thank both of you for coming on again to really share these resources.
Thanks for
Thank
having us,
you.
Danny.
Of course, thank you anytime. And once again, I'm Danny Vittori. This has been the Lynn Lowdown, and we'll see you next week with more guests.